Fantasy Premier League managers, welcome back for Game Week 13. We're about to see 9 Game Week fixtures through the next 37 days. So these videos are going to be coming thick and fast. So make sure you've got your notifications and alerts on so that you don't miss a single tip or trick for the upcoming game weeks. As usual, we're going to start off by jumping straight into my team. And there's no change at the back as Sanchez remains between the posts. He's facing a Leeds side who have been scoring recently, but I'm hoping that Brighton turn around their run of form and keep a clean sheet this week. As you can see, I've also got Duffy starting in the squad. It was a toss-up between starting Duffy and Antonio, but I think Man City are just going to show West Ham what it's all about when it comes to being a top side in the Premier League and maintaining that European fixture, Premier League fixture flow. I think they're probably going to handle it a bit better than us. But don't get me wrong, if West Ham do come away with the 3 points at the weekend, I will be overjoyed and emphatic as I am a West Ham fan, if you guys didn't already know. Rest of my backline speaks for itself, as it should for most of you guys at home. We have Trent Alexander-Arnold facing a Southampton side. I think he's going to get a clean sheet as well as some attacking returns here. So I'm hoping for a big haul. The same goes with Cancelo. There's probably going to be a clean sheet as well as an attacking return, given how dominant City are going forward. Next up, we've got Rudiger, and whilst Chelsea are in form and the best defensive side in the Premier League so far this season, I am concerned that United might actually show up for this game, but that doesn't mean I'm not going to start Rudiger, as I'm going to keep faith in the boys in blue at the back. For those of you that watch each week, you will have seen that I've made some changes to the middle of the park, and I had 2 free transfers, which meant I had to tinker. I wasn't happy with some of the players in my squad. I've taken some out, and I actually made a total of 4 changes, resulting in a -8 point hit. So some of the players that you've seen removed across the middle of the park will be Phil Foden, who was flagged for potential injury. I'm also not impressed with his recent performances at City. He hasn't returned an attacking haul in the last 3 game weeks in the Prem. On top of that, we also had Benrahma and Demarai Gray, who were respectively returning for their teams. So out with them, as well as Jamie Vardy up top, who blanked in the last 3 game weeks. And don't get me wrong, Vardy has a fantastic run of fixtures coming up, but I wanted to free up those funds so that I could change the midfield into what you can see in front of you. So we're starting off with Bernardo Silva, someone who has returned 4 attacking returns in the last 5 game weeks. The only week he didn't return was that shock defeat to Crystal Palace. And he's actually started every game so far this season under Pep Guardiola in the Premier League, with the exception of Game Week 1. Furthermore, in the 11 game weeks that he has played, he's only been subbed off twice, which means he frequently completes 90 minutes. And with the run of fixtures that Manchester City have got coming up, I really like this shout. And at 7.2 million, he's a million. He's 1.1 million cheaper than Phil Foden, which allows me to upgrade elsewhere in the middle of the park, which is what you're about to see. Another player that came in this week, and that was off the back of Jamie Vardy going out and freeing up some funds, was Heung-min Son. Now, after their shock defeat yesterday in the Europa Conference League, it hasn't exactly filled me with joy and positivity, but if anyone turns up for Tottenham, it is usually this man. And considering their next 3 game weeks, they've got Burnley, Brentford and Norwich, I have a lot of faith that he can outscore Vardy and perform better than Vardy, especially under the new manager Antonio Conte, who has said that it is a big project for him at Tottenham, but I've got faith. I think they could turn things around, and I think this is the man who's going to help them do that. The other upgrade to Benrahma and Demarai Gray was this man right here, and that is Diogo Yota. He was in my spotlight last week, and he didn't disappoint as he returned a goal as well as a clean sheet, picking up 8 points. If you guys haven't seen this before, stick around to the end of the video. I recommend players for you to bring in every week, as I think they'll perform well, and they're players that are normally for a bit of longevity too. So I've kept my own word here, brought in Yota myself, and just look at Yota's fixtures. In the next 14 game weeks, he has 1 fixture that's rated a difficulty of 4 or above, which is Chelsea away in game week 21. And other than that, all other fixtures are rated a difficulty of 2 or 3. On top of that, Bobby Firmino is currently out injured, and that tends to mean that Yota plays in that false 9 position, so he has the opportunity of goals as well as bringing in the assists. I do actually reckon that Divock Origi may also get some minutes here as well, with Bobby Firmino being out injured, especially as he come on the pitch and scored against West Ham a couple of weeks ago. But Yota is probably my go-to for more nailed-onness and more likely to return. If you can't afford Yota, I would keep an eye on Divock Origi. He's only 4.9 million and he takes up that forward slot up top. And if he doesn't play, he's less than 5 million, so who really cares if he sits on your bench? The 2 midfielders for me that remain unscathed and untouched would be Gallagher. Conor Gallagher of Crystal Palace has been playing some great football lately, and he's on red hot form. He has 4 attacking returns as well as 2 clean sheets in his past 3 game weeks alone, and the fixtures are looking pretty for him as well. Upcoming, he's got Aston Villa, Leeds and Manchester United, so these aren't bad fixtures for Conor Gallagher to keep his run of form going and potentially get more attacking return. Last but not least, in the middle of the park, we have the most important man in the Fantasy Premier League right now, and probably in the past couple of years, and that is Mohamed Salah. He's owned by 73% of managers nearly leading up to this game weekend. He has 125 points already, and we've already covered off how good his fixtures look as we spoke about Diogo Yota. 1-5 rated fixture difficulty in the next 14 weeks. His price risen to 13 million. If you don't already have this man in your team, do what you can, get him in, stick the captain's armband on him and forget about him for the rest of the season. Even when he goes to the African Cup of Nations for a week or two, maybe take a free hit, maybe bench him, but do not take him out of your team. The guy is on fire. He's probably going to pick up the Golden Boot this season as well. Wow, what a showing this season. And last but not least, this was a tricky one for me. To lead the line, I've gone with Tony. Everton have only managed to keep 1 clean sheet in the past 6 weeks, and that bodes well for me by putting Ivan Toney up top. Now, it was tough picking him over Antonio, especially as a West Ham fan, but I'm kind of hedging my bets here. If West Ham play well and we win the fixture, I'm a happy man regardless of the fact that I've benched Antonio. If we do lose, which I think is probably more likely just given how dominant City are, then I don't lose anything by benching him, as I don't think he may get an attack in return. I hope he does, but I have to hedge my bets here. I have to play the statistics, and I just think that Toney is more likely to score against the Everton side that are struggling to keep clean sheet. And let's be honest, the clean sheet that they did keep was against Tottenham Hotspur in Antonio Conte's first Premier League appearance as a manager for Spurs. So not exactly a reassuring clean sheet, to be honest, especially with the way Tottenham have been performing lately as well. Looking at my bench, I think it makes sense to put Livramento last. Anyone going to Anfield this season is going to be in trouble and likely to concede. They're just on red hot form. They are title contenders this season, even though they are hunting Chelsea down. But I think that Anfield is a mainstay where they do continue to score goals. Hart of Leeds is a 4.5 million striker I brought in for Vardy to allow funds to go into the middle of the park and upgrade the likes of Benrahma and Damari Gray. He's 4.5 million. I don't expect him to start each week. He doesn't need to. He's there to sit on the bench, as each week you must pick 3 out players to sit on your bench. And why waste team value by putting players that are expensive on the bench? I'm not going to do that. Moving swiftly onto the spotlight, I've got a few players to recommend for you here. And because the fixtures are coming thick and fast, I'm recommending longevity over short turnarounds here, because a lot of managers do forget to change their teams in these periods, and it does become a difficult time to stay on top of it. But more importantly as well, you don't want to be changing a lot over the next couple of weeks, given the amount of rotation that we're probably going to see over the winter and the Christmas fixtures when those games do come thick and fast. There are some teams that have bare minimum turnaround times, and there are some teams that get a little bit longer. So a goalkeeper that I'm going to recommend this week, if you're looking to change a keeper, if you're not already set on Vincent Gator, who I recommended last week, or you're not a fan of Ramsdale or Sanchez, those cheap 4.5 million keepers, and you're looking for someone who's a bit more expensive, but you don't want to waste a Chelsea or a Liverpool slot on the likes of, you know, Mendy and Alisson, then I think this man is the one for you, and that is Hugo Lloris. Hugo Lloris is El Capitano of Spurs and is probably the first name on the team sheet for Antonio Conte. Conte is well known for having defensively sound teams, and he is going to be looking to shore up that back line, and what better time to start doing that than on fixtures such as Burnley, Brentford and Norwich, even Brighton and Leicester after that. This is the time to potentially bring in this man. He's 5.4 million, so he's taken a bit of a price hit. This is only a recommendation for someone over the Christmas period. They've got a nice run of games, and the only difficult fixture that Tottenham have between now and the January international break is going to be Liverpool, and that is in game week 18. The rest of the fixtures are all 2 and 3 rated, so if there's a time for Spurs to start keeping clean sheets, it's now. It's this run of fixtures. Let's hope they can do it. For those of you who may have been living under a rock, you may not have heard of Ben Chilwell's injury. He's sustained a ACL injury in the midweek Champions League fixture against Juventus, and that means that he's out till January at the very latest, but if he requires surgery, it's probably going to be the rest of the season. So that means this man, Marcos Alonso, could take up the reins at that left wing back position again like he did at the start of the season. Alonso started the opening 6 games for Chelsea, amassing 39 points and hasn't featured since, and that averages out at 6.5 points per game. Due to Chilwell's fantastic fine form, Alonso's price has absolutely plummeted and he can now be picked up on the cheap at 5.6 million. Now, if you do think that United won't score this weekend, this could be a man that you could bring in this week and for the foreseeable fixtures for Chelsea. Between now and the new year, other than the United game this weekend, the only difficult fixture they face is West Ham, which is rated a 4 difficulty. The rest of them have all been given a 2 or 3 difficulty rating. We know that Alonso will be deployed in that left wing back as opposed to left back position, which means there's potential for A, clean sheets because they are defensively the best team in the Premier League so far this season, but B, those attacking returns. And we all know that Marcos Alonso does well from a dead ball set piece situation too. Now, it goes without saying, if you don't already have this man on your shopping list, he is potentially there. But other alternatives to him would be Reece James, that right back position. But just note that he is an extra $500,000 in price. However, he is more likely to be nailed. We also don't know how long Alonso is going to play at that left back position. Tuchel brought on Azpilicueta when Chilwell went off injured midweek, although he did turn around to say that they were planning on bringing Azpi on to cover Reece James and give him a bit of a rest before this weekend, but then Chilwell's injury occurred and it just made sense to let Azpi play at left back as he is a very versatile defender, and they were already bringing on planning Azpilicueta on, so it made no sense to sit him back down on the bench and bring on Alonso. Let's hope that that is the only reason Alonso didn't come on in the midweek, and he is the one who continues to play in that left back position, as he did a great job at it at the start of the season. Now, it's not often I bring someone from my team into the spotlight, but you would have seen a gold trim around this man when viewing my team previously. For the record, for those of you who don't know or may be new here, if you go back in the video, look at my team, you'll see some players have a gold glowing trim around them, and if they do, it means that they are recommended in the spotlight. So players that if you don't have, I would recommend looking at, and the reason for that is because they're in my team most weeks, I don't tend to cover them off in the spotlight each week. Otherwise, I'd constantly be talking about the same players. But Bernardo Silva is someone that I think should be covered off separately. We did already speak about their fixtures as well, but we are going to go back into depth on that. Bernardo Silva has fantastic fixtures coming up, and between now and the new year, the only 4 or 5 rated fixture difficulty game they've got is West Ham this weekend, and that is also at the Etihad. And City are free scoring at the Etihad. They could easily put 4 or 5 past West Ham, and that hurts me to say as a West Ham fan, but we need to be realistic here. West Ham are without Ogbonna, so they don't have that natural left-footed player playing out from the back, which is what they've been reliant upon this season, as most of their opportunities have come from the left and set pieces. So I do see West Ham getting a bit penned in, a bit held back in their own 18-yard box, 25 yards from goal. That is much likely a possibility for West Ham this weekend. Bernardo Silva is someone who is key to unlocking defences and popping up with goals and assists when you think that that isn't a possibility. He just comes up with the goods. After West Ham, he faces Villa, Watford, Wolves and Leeds, then Newcastle, Leicester and Brentford. This is a fantastic run of fixtures across the winter season, and if there's anyone that can play games back to back to back to back, this man is one of them. I already covered off Yota last week, and he's someone I brought in my team, so have a look at his stats if you haven't already. But let's jump on to another midfielder recommendation that's in that mid price point. If you don't want to go for another super expensive midfielder because you've already got Salah, you might have Vardy up top, you might be eyeing up Harry Kane, you might have Jamie Vardy up top as well. You might even be considering a return for Cristiano Ronaldo, whose fixtures look fantastic going forward from game week 15. But the man I'm about to recommend is a cheap budget option into a team with fantastic fixtures, and that is Lucas Moura. Moura comes in at 6.4 million, and we've already spoke about how good Spurs' fixtures look between now and the new year, and he seems to have nailed himself a starting position under Antonio Conte in effectively a 3 with Kane and Son. So a good way to get into Spurs' attacking forward line at a cheap price, and again, he's not too expensive should he not return explosive amounts of goals or assists, which is what we'd be expecting from a fixture run like this. Now, you probably wouldn't believe me if I told you, but the next player comes in the forward position and he plays for a team that are actually unbeaten in their last 7 Premier League games. And the striker I'm about to recommend has got 4 attacking returns in his last 4 starts for Crystal Palace, and that is Christian Benteke. In the last 5 game weeks, the only fixture he didn't start in was the Manchester City one, where he came on as a substitute for 25 minutes, but he scored 2 against Burnley last week but he also scored against Newcastle and Arsenal in the couple of fixtures prior to that. Coming up next, he faced Aston Villa, Leeds and Manchester United, and there's opportunity for more goals for him there, and that's why this man's on my recommended list, coming in at a value of 6.4 million. He's nice and cheap, and the fixtures kind of warrant it as well. Between now and the new year, the only 4 difficulty rated fixture he's got is that Man United fixture from game week 15. The rest of them are all rated 2 to 3 over the Christmas period. My final recommendation for the spotlight this week is another striker, and that comes in the form of Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang. He faces a Newcastle side that haven't yet won in the Premier League so far this season, and Aubameyang has actually scored in 4 of his 5 starts at the Emirates so far this season. When looking at home form, Aubameyang has had 16 shots in the box so far and 10 shots on target this season. That is the second best in all of Fantasy Premier League for both of those statistics, which show that there are potential for him to get more goals. The only person that can actually beat this statistic is Mohamed Salah, and well, look how well he's doing. And not only have Newcastle not failed to win this season, they're one of 2 sides in the Premier League that have failed to register a clean sheet yet this season. And that bodes well for Aubameyang, who's actually scored in 6 of his last appearances against Newcastle. So this could be a very good fixture for him. And then even after that, he doesn't have awful fixtures. He's got a Man United side who have been defensively poor. Even in the midweek where they kept a clean sheet, they didn't exactly look defensively sound. And then they go to Everton, Southampton and West Ham from game week 17. This could be a potentially prolific period for Aubameyang, and I hope that if you do bring him in, he does wonders for you. And at 9.9 million, he's a little bit cheaper than those other expensive strikers, such as Vardy at 10.2, who's been out of form, Kane in the 12 region, Lukaku in 11.5, and even Ronaldo in that 12 million range. Anyways, guys, I hope you've enjoyed. Let me know who you thought should have been in the spotlight this week. Let me know your teams below, and if you've got any questions or advice, drop a comment and I will reply before the game week starts, and that is at 11 AM tomorrow. Until then, take care and I'll see you next time.